Brooklyn Independent Television.
Welcome to Brooklyn Elected Officials. I'm your host, New York State Assemblymember Nicole Malliotakis. Today I'm joined by Major David Ryan, an Iraq War veteran of the U.S. Army Reserves, Mr. Howard Dunn of the American Legion and a World War II veteran as well, and Frankie Marra, organizer of the Bay Ridge Memorial Day Parade. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having us.
I first wanted to talk a little bit about your background so people are familiar with who we have as our guest today. I'll start off with Dave Ryan. As I mentioned earlier, he's a major from the U.S. Army Reserves. He served 3 tours in Iraq in 2003, 2006, and 2009. He is a native Brooklynite, and he has over 22 years of service in our military. And as well, he's currently a senior court clerk with the New York State Supreme Court. Thank you, David, for being here.
Thank you, Nicole.
Howard Dunn is a U.S. Navy veteran from World War II. He retired from the Navy in 1946 with the rank of Yeoman 3rd Class. He is the past county commander of the Kings County American Legion, the past commander of the Amity Post 791, and the 2nd District Commander of Brooklyn and Staten Island chapters of American Legion. He is very involved with various organizations here in Brooklyn, including the Boy Scouts of America and the Wounded Warriors of America. He has received awards from various organizations, including the Boy Scouts of America and the Bay Ridge Community Council. Thank you as well for being here.
Thank you.
And our third guest is Frankie Marra, who is a resident of the Dyker Heights section of Brooklyn. He is a musician, and one of the things he's best known for is his band, Frankie Marra, and His Band is the name of the band, which he has been playing with for the past 33 years and at many hot spots in Bay Ridge, including the Greenhouse Cafe and Pippin's. He's also the newly elected president of the Bay Ridge St. Patrick's Day Parade, which will be kicking off on March 25th from 5th Avenue in Brooklyn. And he's also the on the executive board of the Kings County Veterans. And last year he was very instrumental in saving our Memorial Day Parade, raising close to $20,000 to save our parade in Bay Ridge, which is the longest parade in the history of the United States. And as well, he is also the founder and main sponsor of the annual 4th of July Family Picnic, which is attended annually by close to 2,000 people. Thank you, Frankie, for being with us.
Thank you.
So today we wanted to dedicate the show to our veterans and just talk about a couple of things that are happening in Albany, some pieces of legislation that we passed last year that will benefit our returning veterans, and also focus on the Memorial Day Parade that will be coming up in Bay Ridge soon. The first piece of legislation that we did pass into law that I'd like to discuss today is a bill that was co-sponsored by myself and my colleague, Assemblyman Robert Castelli of Westchester. He was the prime sponsor of this bill. And this bill states that a public employer shall not abolish any position solely based upon the fact that the position is currently filled by an individual engaged in military service. The background for this legislation is that back in 2010, when many of our young men and women were off in Iraq and Afghanistan serving this nation, the MTA, which is the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, which we're all familiar with for their bus and train service here in our community, allowed several service members to be laid off while they were serving overseas due to downsizing at this public authority. 2 of those individuals were National Guardsman Andy Marino and Army Reservist Sergeant Alvin Taylor, who were both serving in Iraq at the time. And this came to shock to the community, shock to the state of New York and a lot of elected officials, including myself, that they would actually terminate someone's employment or lay them off based on, while they're away, and they could really have no recourse to that. So I wanted to just, I guess, hear your opinions as 2 individuals who came back, and I'm sure it was difficult returning, and there was a lot of stress involved. I wanted to hear your thoughts, first of all, the situation, and then we could talk a little bit about what happened with this bill.
Well, Nicole, it's incredible that the MTA, a public agency who's well aware of the federal protections for Guardsmen and reservists, like the Social Sales Relief Act, the Employment Reemployment Rights Act. Many of these laws were strengthened after the Persian Gulf War, where after we had the draftee army ended, the national security strategy was to rely heavily on the Guard and Reserve to be able to deploy to various theaters at any given time. And here you have an organization, the MTA, an authority, a state authority, who after the World Trade Center tower attack said to Governor Pataki, we need protection. We have vital infrastructure, we have bridges, we have tunnels, we need protection. So under Operation Noble Eagle, the National Guard was mobilized both on state and federal orders to protect the vital assets and the infrastructure of the state of New York. And then I'll give you one example, the 69th Regiment. They were protecting all our bridges and tunnels. And then the 69th, the Fighting Irish 69th Regiment from Manhattan, got deployed to Iraq to protect the most dangerous road in the world, Route Irish, which went from Baghdad to what we call the Green Zone, from the Baghdad airport to the Green Zone. Then they come home. Imagine a number of MTA employees serving in the National Guard and Army Reserve. Now, can you imagine that after serving in New York City for an entire year, protecting MTA assets and MTA infrastructure, get deployed to Iraq, and then come back and only to be told, oh, by the way, while you're in Iraq, we laid you off. But thanks for protecting our assets and our infrastructure. The towers fell, but obviously the MTA doesn't get it. Doesn't get the necessity for our national security strategy to have a Guard and Reserve to protect both domestic threats and overseas threats. And it's amazing that it takes a state law to tell a state agency, you need to abide by federal law, which guarantees the protection for guardsmen and reservists to come back to their employment. Yes. It's just absolutely incredulous that this state agency has to have a law to tell them, you need to protect the very soldiers that are protecting you and the citizenry of the state of New York. Absolutely incredible that you actually had to pass a law, and I'm very proud you did so. But to tell another state agency to do this, it's amazing. You know how it's flabbergasting that they have to be told to do this. Right. You know.
Now, what did you? First, thank you both for your service to our nation. What was it like as a returning soldier to come home? Can you share any of your experiences of what you think these individuals may have experienced coming home and finding that their job had been eliminated?
As a civil servant myself, you know, I came home. I can imagine that I purchased a property, then got deployed. Within a month after I purchased the property, I purchased a co-op. And can you imagine that when I came back, only to be told I'm laid off? How am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to pay my bills? You know, well, here I am out serving my country, protecting my country, and then to be told, oh, by the way, you know, you're a civil servant, and we had some layoffs, and you know, we fired you 6 months into your tour, and you know, we tried notifying you, but mail, you know, apparently is a problem. You didn't get the notification to come home saying, yes, you're laid off. So good luck with your mortgage. You know, good luck with your bills, and you know, in this economy, good luck with your career. Right. Absolutely incredible.
Is there anybody at home not shaking their head over this, that a law has to be put in effect? You just have to shake your head that, first of all, I'm honored to be on the panel here with these two distinguished gentlemen and yourself, Nicole, but these guys give up the ultimate sacrifice to go over and fight for the freedoms that we have, for the freedoms to be on a train or a bus, to go to work, and these guys come home and they don't have a job, and because of fund cutting and budget cuts and veterans and soldiers should never be in the same sentence. And it's, if there's nobody at home shaking their heads, this is a real head scratcher that the MTA would even do this, or any other place of employment, where these guys go off, their families every night go to bed hoping that their loved one is okay, and then they got to come home now and worry about whether they can have money to pay the mortgage, pay their. It's unbelievable. I'm shaking my head just hearing this, and we thank you for this bill.
Thank you, and I do want to note that it passed unanimously in both the Senate and the Assembly and signed by the governor very quickly. So, you know, every legislator was just as shocked as I was, and my colleague Robert Castelli was when this took place. I mean, it certainly is, you know, when you have our government cutting off the livelihood of returning soldiers who literally put their lives on the line to protect this very government, it really is an irony that I can't explain. And so,
right, take a year out of their lives, you know, sacrifice that away from families, away from loved ones, only to have to come back saying, you know, welcome back, you're fired.
Here's your hat. What's the hurry?
Yeah.
The next topic I just want to touch on is another law that we passed last year. Back in, I guess, 2011, it was, you know, we had a series of protests at military funerals. In 2011, the Supreme Court decision was to permit the Westboro Baptist Church of Maine to carry on disruptive protests at military funerals. So here we have soldiers who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, returning home to their parents, which you can't imagine what it must like to have a child come home from war like this, and to have the disruption of protests at their funerals, I think, is a complete disgrace. And sadly, there are individuals and groups out there that seek to use military funerals as a way to protest the war or to advance their ideology. And you know, the irony of this is that our law protects the freedom of expression and protects the freedom to protest. And it is our military men and women who actually gave them that right. And yet here they are protesting at a military funeral. Last year, we passed legislation that would extend the buffer zone from 100 feet to 300 feet for a military funeral. Obviously, we don't want any military funerals, but unfortunately, because the U.S. Supreme Court said we have to allow them that right to protest and give their freedom of expression, we had to comply with that. And so the way that we can make it more difficult and give families the respect to grieve properly and have their, you know, carry on their mourning and their right to grieve their loved ones. At the same time, to comply with the Supreme Court ruling, what we did was extend that buffer zone to give them the proper space to mourn. And so that was one legislation that I think is a disgrace that we even need, quite frankly, because we shouldn't have to be in a situation where we have Americans who are actually, you know what, quite frankly, I don't call them American or patriotic, because to stand there and protest, you're a man or woman who has given their life to protect your rights is a disgrace. But we had to do this in the State Assembly and the Senate, which I am shocked by. But to extend this buffer zone from 100 feet to 300 feet, let me start with you, Mr. Frankie Marra. How are your feelings about this?
Well, you know, this is another head scratcher to all the protesters out there. And listen, I'm the first one that will support your right to protest. But to all the protesters, as a parent, I can't imagine having my son come home, my son or my daughter, and having to go to their funeral and have protesters protesting, whether it's the war or protesting anything at a funeral. Have some decency. These are the guys who, that kid in that casket is the kid who gave you the right to protest. He's defending your right, and you don't have the decency to hold off your protests. You want to do it in front of a federal building, you want to do it in front of your elected officials, you want to do it on a main street. You have the right to protest. You have the right to do that. But to do it at a funeral, that's just not decent.
Staff Sergeant Malaprin's convoy, part of it wound up in my yard in Iraq in 2004. And one of the Humvees lost a 19-year-old soldier. And you know, we were there and helped the unit through it, got the chaplains and everything. And I'm saying, so this kid, 19 years old, goes out and you know, goes to Dover, and the remains are taken to the family and the proper burial. You know, why would these folks choose to protest this 19-year-old? This 19-year-old, you know, just got out of high school. Probably was about 13 years old when the World Trade Center came. Probably was about 15 when we invaded Iraq. I mean, what did he have to do with the national security strategy that all of a sudden these protesters want to protest his or her death and disrespect their family like that? And exactly well put. There is a time and place for everything, and I would gladly lay down my life for the right to protest. But exactly. I
Absolutely.
mean, there has to be a limit. You know, the old saying is you can't yell, you know, fire in a movie house. Well, you know, there is a time and place, and this is not the time and place to do it. To protest national security strategy.
Right.
You know, you can disagree with the conduct of the war. You can disagree, you know, with the reasons why we went to war. But to do it at a military funeral of all places for some 19-year-old kid, I mean, it's just, it's beyond the pale.
It's outrageous.
It's come down to decency. Is there any? Is it
Any morale?
I mean, common decency. Let the person be buried and honored and mourned by their family. You want to protest at another place at another time, or at that time you want to protest. Excuse me, Nicole, but an elected official's office. You want to protest down Main Street. That's the place you want to protest because these guys gave you the right, but you don't have the right to really. It's almost a desecration of the family, and it's just abolishing all decency. Have we come to where we're back in the primitive days where we don't have decency to let somebody be buried to rest?
Right, definitely.
No, I had said that the buffer zone that was created was actually 300 feet. It's actually 1,000 feet. I actually misrepresented that.
Okay.
But it's 1,000 feet, a buffer zone that was established in the vicinity of a wake, a funeral, a burial, or a military memorial service for a man or woman who gave the ultimate sacrifice during the war. In addition to that, the Parks Commissioner would be authorized to require demonstrators to apply for a permit prior to demonstrating on any type of state property, and local governments and local laws would do the same before conducting any protests in parks or public property. So that at least gives it some type of oversight, which, you know, I still don't believe that we need this. I still can't believe that there are people who would protest a man or woman who gave their sacrifice and gave them the freedom to actually protest, which is the irony, of course, behind this one. And if anyone at home is interested in learning more about this case, the Supreme Court case in question that actually gave, that said that we have to allow the rights of military protests is Snyder versus Phelps. So that I will leave with people to do some further research to see whether they agree or disagree with the Supreme Court ruling. One other topic that I want to bring up is a piece of legislation that has not been passed but has just been introduced this year. The bill number is A9406. It is introduced by Assemblyman McEnany of upstate New York. He's from the Albany region. I will be co-sponsoring this legislation as well. This legislation, you're all familiar with the Women and Minority-Owned Businesses program that gives benefits, tax credits, procure state ability, or I guess an advantage in procuring state contracts. This program right now applies to those businesses who are 50% owned by women or minorities throughout the state of New York. We want to be able to add disabled veterans to that list. We believe strongly that, you know, obviously these service members who are in wars, you both would be familiar with, and of course you would as the head of the Memorial Day Parade, suffer significant injuries, and they come back sometimes with permanent disabilities. And so what we want to be able to do is add them and give them the same type of benefits as the women and minority business owners have currently. And as I said, it really would not only help the returning veterans get their feet back on the ground, but it also would help the state and help entrepreneurism, help us bring some new businesses to New York State, help our economy. And I think this is a great bill. I think it really is something that we can do from the state level for our returning veterans and really help them get themselves established when they come back from war. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. We'll start with you, Dave, on what you think about this bill.
Absolutely, it's a great bill. It would get national attention. And I think a number of businesses, even outside of New York, if a disabled veteran were to start it, especially with, you know, with the, say it was involved heavily, like the internet, and there was out-of-state ordering, et cetera, I think you would get quite a number of organizations, individuals who would be attracted to that, to say, hey, this soldier gave his, say, legs or his arm, God forbid, for our country. What can I do for him and get him by supporting his business or her business? So, Nicole, an absolute great bill. Very much look forward to the governor signing it once it's passed, because these are these disabled veterans deserve all our support. they deserve the consideration of this to help them get off their feet and then contribute back to society too by being a business owner. So I can't think of a better bill this year in the State Assembly.
Well, matter of fact, I believe that a disabled vet, if he wants to have a vending outfit outside the properties, he has to pay for a permit to be out there. And that should be abolished. He'd be able to get the permit without any charge. Bad enough if he lost his arm, his legs, or whatever disability he had, but to have to pay to try and have a little business outside these buildings, it's outrageous. They should be permitted to have a permit free of charge.
I think it's a great bill. I would actually like to see the bill extended to any veteran that comes back, if they have a job or if they don't have a job, that wants to start a business. I mean, these are the job creators. If you're a veteran and you've served 2, 3 years, 5 years, come back, I think we should afford them the same rights as a minority or a woman to start a business, whether you're disabled or not. It helps the economy. Here's a person who spent 3, 4, 5 years in a hole on the battleground. We should open arms for anybody, whether he's disabled, of course, but I'd like to go a little further and say any veteran that comes back, we should give them the same rights to start a business.
Well, like what Howie touched upon too, the fact that waiving the fees, there should many fees that should be waived. I mean, it could come from any sort of the permit fees, licensing fees, etc. We really should look into, for all veterans, waiving those fees, you know, to make it easier for them, and perhaps create an Osmond office to assist those veterans with starting internet startups or local businesses. Really, definitely, that would definitely be a step in the right direction for our veterans.
You know, the veterans come home and it's an adjustment. I think to come back and adjust, and you hear all the kinds of problems, and you know, just recently in the news about that sergeant, the adjustment back into home life. We should hold out the red carpet for these soldiers, and if they need some counseling and all, and counseling not only psychological, but if they financial, they come back there, maybe their mortgage is behind, and maybe we should have counselors prepared to help the soldiers. I mean, this is just decent. It's decency. I've used the word a few times here, but it's the right thing to do. It's a great bill. I'd like to see it pushed to all veterans to come back and encourage them to open up their own business if they'd like, and just help them get back adjusted to regular civilian life.
You're absolutely right on adjusting, because after my first tour, you know, adjusting and coming back, and because a lot of people think the Army and the Marines are at war, and the country isn't, because they're so far removed from them, that I quickly volunteered to go back. That was just like, it just made sense to me. It just made sense to me. Okay, well, what's the best way for me to adjust? Just go back, you know, and so whatever we can do for these veterans to adjust back to life is fantastic.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I think there's the sentiment of many of us in Albany that we feel that we just can't do enough for our men and women who've sacrificed for this country. And since you brought up the point about different resources that are available, I just want to let those at home who may know a veteran, or if you are a veteran that's just returned, or if you're a veteran in general, please visit the www.veterans.ny.gov website. That offers a lot of insight into the resources that are available. And now if you go to www.veterans.ny.gov.employment, then that will specifically deal with those offerings in terms of career counseling or skill assessment, resume preparation. There's links to other very veteran-oriented employment assistance. So that's a very good resource for everyone at home to know about, and I hope that you'll take an opportunity to look at that and share that information with any veterans that may be in your life. I just want to also return to the panel now to talk about something exciting that's coming up. Of course, there's 2 dates to keep on your calendar. First is May 28th. That will be the 145th Memorial Day Parade of Brooklyn. As you know, it is the oldest Memorial Day Parade in the country, and is in the heart of my district in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, along 3rd Avenue. Now, prior to that, though, we are having a wonderful fundraiser, and so I'd like Frankie to just share with us, as the official fundraiser now of the Memorial Bay Ridge Parade. April 29th, you will be hosting something at Salty Dogs. Can you share with us what that will be?
Well, last year, one of my friends, Linda Gallagher, called me up and said there's an article in the Daily News about the parade, Memorial Day, which is the oldest, 145 years, was in jeopardy because of cut funds. And once again, budget cuts and veterans should never be in the same sentence except for what I just said. So I got a couple of my friends. I gave the first $1,000, and a couple of my friends matched it, and I went with a whole bunch of my friends who were bands, and we went to the Salty Dog, held a fundraiser, and raised the $20,000 needed. Now, we're doing it again this year. We'll probably have to do it for a few years. We were in a reactive mode. We want to be in a proactive mode. It's planned with the help of elected officials who come and support, and these guys who, the reasons why I do it. I'm also reaching out to the mayor and 2 U.S. senators here. I know Chuck Schumer's a Brooklyn boy. We need your help and support and visibility on this parade. If I'm the U.S. senator of a state and I'm from Brooklyn, like Chuck Schumer, I would be at the oldest parade for our veterans, 145th parade. So I'm inviting both U.S. senators, Gillibrand and Schumer, and our mayor, Bloomberg, to come to the fundraiser on April 29th at the Salty Dog. We will allow you to speak in a nonpartisan way, and to come to the parade. That's the least you can do for this gentleman, which I know and I respect, this gentleman and his family and every veteran who's laid down their life for you. Come to Brooklyn that day, and it's just a beautiful day and the view of the most magnificent bridge ever built on this earth.
Now, what's the time of the event?
The event goes from 1 o'clock to 11 o'clock. And a funny thing happened last year. The veterans left a little early, and people were asking why. That was the actual day that bin Laden was caught and killed. So we have a great memory of that first year. So
we look forward to seeing everyone on April 29th at 1 p.m. at Salty Dogs. And what can we expect there? What will take place?
Well, we'll have music. We're going to have a great raffle. And we're going to get all the restaurants in Bay Ridge, which are second to none. I love to eat in Manhattan, but they're second to none. And about 16 restaurants, we're going to call it 16 nights in Bay Ridge. And for a $10 raffle, you can win dinner at 16 of the top restaurants, dinner for 2, top restaurants in Bay Ridge. We will be selling the raffles at each of those restaurants, and then collecting that money in the last day at the fundraiser, we will also sell raffles for that. It's a great prize. It boosts Bay Ridge, and we need to raise at least $20,000 for these veterans to have their parade. It's the oldest parade. Please support it. To the top elected officials, please support it. And Bay Ridge had the best attendance at the Memorial Day parade we've had in years because of it. It's not a fashionable thing. It's the right thing to do. This is not it's the cause of the moment.
And where is the Salty
Dog on 75th Street and 3rd Avenue.
In the heart of the 60th Assembly District,
That's
and I
right,
believe we're running out of time. So if anyone would like to say anything else, is there anything that you would like to add,
Well,
Harry?
the parade I've been in favor, I've been involved with many years. Past 5 years, I have not marched. I bring my car in the parade, pick up veterans that cannot march, and ride them along. And it's a wonderful, wonderful affair, especially for our children, to come out and see our veterans and many organizations involved. And gung-ho for it.
Well, I look forward to seeing all 3 of you there. Remember those dates, April 29th, the Salty Dog from 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. and May 28th. Where do we kick off this year? 3rd Avenue?
87th.
87th Street. So we look forward to celebrating the 145th year of this parade. And that's all the time we have for today's show. I'd like to thank my guests, Major David Ryan, Howard Dunn, and Frankie Marra. I'm Assemblymember Nicole Malliotakis, and if you'd like to reach my office, you can call me at 718-987-0197. Thank you for watching Brooklyn Elected Officials on the BCAT TV network.
How about a hand for Nicole?
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you very much.
Watch this and other Brooklyn Independent Television episodes online at breakartsmedia.org/BIT.